Hello everyone, welcome to this masterclass on product-led growth. We're going to dive deep into this topic and I honestly can't wait to dig in. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of what product-led growth is all about, I want to take 1 minute to really just introduce myself because there is a ton of people online who love teaching, but they actually don't know what they're talking about. And it drives me just a bit crazy. So who am I? My name is Wes Bush, and I wrote the best-selling book, which is somewhere on my desk here. Looks like this, and it's actually one of those books, not just one of those 7-page ebooks you'll find online. I'm also the host of the Product-Led Summit and Product-Led Podcast, where we dissect hundreds of the world's top SaaS leaders on how they've built their successful product-led businesses. Now, I'd argue that I've spent more time digging into the actual how of behind building a successful product-led business than anyone else on this planet. But this crazy obsession around product-led growth wasn't always the case. So you see, back in 2016, when I was in demand generation at Vidyard, I followed the traditional SaaS growth playbook. You probably know the one where you create a bunch of content, put it behind a lead magnet, and then send those people a lot of email until one day they hopefully request a demo or turn into a paying customer. So yes, I was one of those annoying marketers, and I couldn't help but feel at the end of the day that there was a better way to do marketing. And so that really made me think about, well, in my own experiences, when do I typically request a demo? And it often was the case that I would only request a demo when I really wanted to purchase that software product. The products I used and loved all the time typically let me sign up for free and experience the value of the product all before asking me to pay up front. I'm sure you can probably relate to this experience too, whether it's using Slack, Zoom, Netflix, or Asana. The majority of the tools we sign up for let us get started on our own without talking to anyone. That's not because I don't like talking to people, but it's because I like experiencing what the product's all about before having to sit through a long conversation with the sales rep. So when I helped launch a freemium product at Vidyard, you could say I was pretty excited. One of the things that I didn't quite expect right off the bat, though, was for the product to quickly balloon to over 100,000 users in less than 12 months. And such rapid growth brought on a ton of fun challenges around how to build a product-led business. Since working at Vidyard, I've had the opportunity to consult for some of the world's fastest growing public companies and help them build a successful product-led business. Although I've been referred to as a product-led guru and expert, I do by no means have all the answers on how to build a product-led business. But it's my hope that by the end of this masterclass, you'll walk away knowing what is product-led growth all about. Why is product-led growth becoming of rising importance? And why are organizations opting to be product-led in the first place? And so we're also going to go into how do you truly become product-led? And how do you build a successful product-led business? And so what is product-led growth all about? Although the term itself has been new to the SaaS space, I'd argue product-led growth has already impacted so many other industries. We just haven't really thought about it through this lens. And so if you don't believe me, here's 3 products you probably have never ever thought about as being product-led. Think about how you buy each of these products, whether it's cologne, cars, shoes. What do they all have in common? And what do you typically do before buying these products? Think about it. What do you do before buying these products? Now, in each of these examples, they're letting the product actually do the majority of the selling. And they let you try before they buy. Think about buying a car. Instead of telling you, your new wheels will look and feel on the road so good, you just need to buy this thing. No, they give you the keys so you can take it for yourself on a test drive and see if you really like it. Same thing goes when you're smelling a particular bottle of cologne or perfume. You want to smell it before you buy. Now, it's not to say brand doesn't have any impact in this. I know some people just buy cologne perfume because it's endorsed by a rock star or a celebrity, or it's a really popular brand. It's not to say people don't buy it, but for the vast majority of us, we do want to smell it, see if it's actually a good fit for our personality and our tastes, and then we make the decision to purchase it. And so at a shoe store, same thing goes. Instead of describing how good the shoe will fit you, what do all great salesmen do when it comes to shoes? They actually let you try it on because they know every foot's different. It might fit great on someone and it might fit horrible on someone else, even though it's the same size. And so it's very personal, and we need to take that into consideration. So this really just comes down to, in each of these examples, there's a common thread. And that is really just that how you sell is just as important as what you sell. And so this is partly because consumers trust brands less. We've all been burned in the past. As experienced buyers, we know talk is cheap. Brand promises are cheap. Anyone can create a website and tell you they have a magic pill that will make you grow 5 feet taller in just 5 minutes. But we know that's baloney. Luckily, we know in this particular case that promise is BS. But whenever it comes to everyday purchases, sometimes it's really hard to tell who is running a legitimate business and who's not, and who can actually deliver on their value and who can't. And that's really where this whole concept of product-led growth comes into play. You see, you could hire a world-class sales team to tell people what your product can do, but people will still be wondering in the back of their heads, can this product actually deliver on its promise? Now, that one question, it puts a ton of risk on the buyer. They have to take your word for it, that your product can do what it said it would. Now, this might have worked back in the good old days of sales where a handshake would seal the deal, but those days are long gone. To sell to the modern buyer, you need to do one thing, and you need to do it incredibly well, and that is show versus tell. The power of showing people what your product is all about is incredible. When people see what your product can do for themselves, they start selling themselves on why they need your product. Because when someone experiences the value of your product, they convince themselves why they need your product in their lives. On the flip side, when you tell someone why they should purchase your product, it's all you. It's you trying to convince them to buy your product. Which strategy do you think is more effective? Showing people or telling people what your product is all about? Now, while you're munching on that question, I'm going to read one of my favorite quotes from Peter Caputa, CEO of DataBox. So he really just goes to say that, well, the sales-led way of buying software is really just about reading about the software, creating a list of all the features you want for that software, and letting sales qualify you, doing a demo. And then it is really just about twisting their arms so you can finally get a trial to see what the product is all about. Whereas the product-led way really revolves around getting started into the product and getting value from the product. And then based on your usage and profile, getting personalized recommendations based on what you're doing in the product. Which strategy sounds better to you? Now, if you're still here, I'm going to say it's because you also believe that showing is 10 times more powerful, if not more, than just simply telling people about it. Think about an incredible experience you had. Maybe it's scuba diving, maybe it's a skiing trip or something. Sure, you can show them pictures of fish, you can show them pictures of snow and big mountains, but nothing is going to compare to actually showing them. Why would we expect anything different whenever it comes to a product experience? Telling just doesn't stack up. But it's not just my opinion. I want to go through the next part and really just spend 5 minutes going through why product-led growth is becoming of rising importance on a macro level. Because I truly believe once you hear these reasons, you'll understand that product-led growth is here for the long haul. And if you don't adapt, you're going to quite literally put your business at risk. So let's dive in, shall we? Now, the reason I'm going to refer to these as tidal waves that are coming for your business as it relates to the rising importance of product-led growth is because that if you don't pay attention, these tidal waves will literally smash into your business and wreak havoc. And so the first tidal wave we're going to go through is really the fact that technology is deflationary in nature. Think about this. You're now paying less for internet than you were 20 years ago. You can now get a 1 terabyte hard drive for under $100 when that kind of space used to cost more than $1 million not too long ago. In every industry, especially in technology, it's a race to the bottom. High profit margins attract competition like moths to a light. And so as a result of all of this technology and competition, customer willingness to pay for features has actually dropped by 30% in just the last 5 years. And this trend really shows no signs of stopping. If anything, this trend is accelerating. And so this really relates to the second tidal wave, which is the fact that startups are more expensive to grow. And in a lot of cases, this is counterintuitive because it's actually never been easier to start a startup. There is access to so much more than what was previously available. Hacker Noon even goes so far to claim that you can now build a startup for $0 to get started, at least, not necessarily to build one. And so as a result of this competition and low barrier to entry, competition has literally exploded. And I truly do mean exploded. Just take a look at the famous MarTech landscape comparison in 2011. Just 9 years later, look at it. It's crazy. All those dots are logos. There has been a 5,233% growth of this landscape since 2011. And that's just one industry. As a result of this heated competition, it's becoming more expensive to acquire customers. Just take a look at these 3 channels, whether it's Facebook with a 171% increase in advertising costs in 2017, Twitter, LinkedIn, if you average them out, there was a 30% increase in advertising costs in just 1 quarter. So all this goes to show that it's not becoming more expensive to acquire customers. In fact, it's becoming way more expensive to acquire customers. It's improved and increased that cost by 55% in just the last 5 years. So on one hand, we have rising costs. On the other hand, we have a lower willingness to pay. Now, you don't have to be a financial whiz to understand that this basically means, on one hand, your expenses go up while your profitability goes down. If you continue on this path, it's only a matter of time before you're running an unprofitable business. So you need to consistently be innovating in order for you to run a business that still has profit at the end of the day. And so the third and final tidal wave I'll go through as it relates to the rising importance of product-led growth really goes around the fact that your buyer has changed. It's not the same person it used to be. The modern buyer has different expectations. And this trend doesn't necessarily apply to just small and mid-sized businesses. A lot of people will often say, hey, product-led growth, it's cool and all. It's good for the small and mid-sized businesses. And I always say to them, no, that enterprise buyer, they're not too different. Sure, there might be extra hoops to jump for them to potentially close a massive deal, but they still expect and want to evaluate software in an easy, frictionless way. Just because they work at a large company doesn't mean that they require or even want to jump through your complicated sales process. And so as such, product experiences have really become an essential part of the buying process. So I want you to think, why are organizations opting to be product-led? Sure, we just went through a lot of reasons why they could want to, but that's a lot of it is just based on fear. Fear that customer acquisition costs are going to keep rising. Fear that maybe the sales-led approach isn't the right way for a lot of people. Maybe people would prefer something else. And so I want you to show you the other side, because you have to be blind not to truly understand that there is so many incredible benefits to product-led growth that go beyond just the tidal waves and how you can prepare your business. Before we go into that, I want to just go through these 3 questions as they relate to getting you to think about why some companies went this direction. So why did HubSpot disrupt their successful inbound marketing model to double down on product-led growth? How did Zoom go from 10 million to 200 million daily active users in just 3 months? How did Mixmax achieve a $0 customer acquisition cost? Those are some pretty good questions, if you ask me. And the reason I asked them at the beginning is because, well, this whole product-led growth thing, why are all these companies going all in on it? And a lot of it comes down to, well, they're really just trying to build a powerful moat for their business. And I'll go through 2 moats here as they relate to product-led growth, so you can start to see the inner workings of these companies and why they moved in this direction. And the first one is really just about how they went building a dominant growth engine, because that's really what product-led growth helps you do. It gives you this powerful moat, helps you grow much faster. And the first reason that relates to building a dominant growth engine comes down to building your wider top of funnel. So one of the first things I hear almost every time a company launches a free trial or freemium model is that, well, I now have 20 to 30% more signups than I did before. And this kind of shocks a lot of CMOs, especially because they're really surprised, like, wait, before we just had a demo request on our website, now we just changed it, or maybe we still have both options, but now we have a free trial freemium model, CTA or call to action on our website, and now we're getting so many more signups. Why is that the case? And it's a great question to ask. Why do 20 to 30% more people, whenever you have a free trial freemium option, sign up for that and not the demo? Now, this really comes down to the fact that you're capturing people earlier in their customer journey. It's as simple as that. These people might not be quite ready to request a demo because they associate that as, I am now buying this software solution, but they are actually ready to see if your product can deliver on its value, get into it, and see if it can help them right away before they're paying. And so the second part of building a dominant growth engine that I want you to really think about is rapid global scale. And so while your competitors are really busy hiring new regional sales reps across the globe, you can truly focus in a product-led business on improving your onboarding to service more customers around the world in a fraction of the time. Just think about, how did Zoom actually go from 10 million to 200 million daily active users in just 3 months? Had Zoom not had a product-led model during the COVID pandemic, there's actually no way it would have been possible for them to go from 10 million to 200 million daily active users in just 3 months without spending a fortune, absolute fortune on hiring countless sales reps. Can you imagine how many demo requests Zoom would have to do to close 190 million daily active users during that 3-month period? And because I was curious, I actually went in and did the math for you. So if we assume they had a close rate of 100%, which is pretty conservative, and they gave every person a demo, they'd have to go do 2 million demos per day, including weekends. Now, if they had a sales force that didn't sleep, they could do 16 30-minute demos every single day of the week. Even with that crazy schedule, really no breaks for the sales folks, they would still need 131,944 sales reps. That's a lot of sales folks and overhead to cover at the end of the day. Even if Zoom did pull that off, you'd be footing the bill for that expensive sales organization. And here's why. Because the more expensive it is for you to sell something, the more expensive it is to buy at the end of the day. And that's also one of the reasons why, if you compare apples to apples, sales-led companies to product-led companies can save a ton on their customer acquisition costs because they're not involving costly human beings through that whole process to qualify, evaluate people, and make sure they can understand your pricing model because it's complicated. No, people just self-select in many of the cases. Not all, but many of the cases. And the last part of building a dominant growth engine comes down to compound versus linear growth. So when you think of a product-led organization, what's really fascinating to me about it is that, let's say you look at their onboarding experience and you realize that their free to paid conversion rate it's underperforming. Okay, so you spend a quarter or maybe a month improving that, and you might only get a 1% increase month over month for that free to paid conversion rate. But then after a while, that 1% month over month improvement, it really does compound very quickly. Whereas in a sales-led company, you often grow by hiring more sales reps. And so it's very linear. For every sales rep, you might expect X kind of outcome for them to generate either in pipeline or closed won deals. And so it's a very linear process. So product-led companies do and are able to take advantage of compound versus linear growth. So in a sales-led company, it really is what I mentioned earlier, is just your main lever growth is hiring new sales reps, where in a product-led company, you can get to significant levels of growth without necessarily investing in a lot more people into the business. So in a product-led business, the cool thing is that your growth isn't dependent on adding more headcount. It's really dependent on how methodical you are about building your growth engine. So the second moat and reason why tons of companies are opting to become product-led comes down to capital efficiency. And this is one of the reasons why venture capitalists love product-led companies. And that is because you can take advantage of a significantly lower customer acquisition cost. Now, although I mentioned, hey, marketing channels are still getting more expensive, the way you acquire customers can be under your control. You can make it more efficient for you to acquire customers. And so although CACs have increased by 50% in the last 5 years, you can still get a significant reduction in your CAC for a ton of product-led businesses. And you can do that by hand-holding your users less. And this can be done because, well, as part of the onboarding experience or getting people up to speed on the product, most times they don't necessarily even have to talk to you in order to sign up, in order to get to value in the product. Now, if they have a problem, for sure, you can be there and help them. If they want to reach out to sales, if they want to reach out to demo, yes, you can be there for them, but there's a hell of a lot less hand-holding for every single user. The other part is removing a ton of friction from the sales process. One of the biggest problems a lot of sales-led companies have as they make this transition to product-led is they realize, oh, I got to update the pricing. Because pricing is one of those interesting levers of a product-led business where if you don't show your pricing, it's just Why are people going to commit in the first place to figuring out your product if they don't know how much the bill is going to be at the end of the day? And so it's really important for product-led companies to show their pricing, make it easy to self-select so that people can know how much they're going to pay in order to use your product. And the other part of being more capital efficient comes to faster sales cycles. In a product-led business, you're showing people how they can get value out of your product. They can sign up for themselves and see for themselves. Whereas in a sales-led company, they really just have to get told. And they're still going to be wondering at the end of the day, can this product still deliver on its promise? And that's risky. And because of that risk, it takes time to make a decision. It's not a no-brainer decision for someone to sign up, pull out their credit card, and pay you their hard-earned money. So building trust is a ton easier in a product-led business. The last part I'll talk about of being capitally efficient is having access to a high revenue per employee business. This is powerful. It's the same reason why Ahrefs is able to have 50 employees and a 50 million annually recurring revenue business. It's because they realize that the way of scaling this business doesn't necessarily have to revolve around adding more sales reps. No, it's about building a more methodical growth engine that powers your business forward. So all in all, these are some of the main benefits of product-led growth that we've covered so far. A lot of these reasons are some of the most common ones that companies will pick as they decide, hey, this is why I'm going to invest in becoming more product-led. I want to have lower customer acquisition costs or maybe a better user experience for my users. Now, what I want you to think about is, what's your main motivation behind becoming product-led? Why are you listening to this presentation? Sure, there is the whole reason of you want to understand more about product-led growth, but why would you even consider becoming product-led? And I hope by at least this point, you at least have one, maybe two, maybe three reasons of why you would want to move in this direction. Because in a world where competition has literally exploded, reducing your customer acquisition costs and growing faster can truly make the difference between being the market leader or just one of those Me Too brands. So the question becomes, do you want to be the leader in your market or the follower? Now, if you want to be the leader in your market, you're going to have to learn how to become product-led. So that brings us to the question, how do you actually become product-led? Is it just involving giving your product team the crown and rings to run the entire business and firing your entire sales team? Contrary to popular belief, no, it doesn't mean your product team runs the entire business. It doesn't mean you don't need sales. No, it really takes an entire organization to make the strategy work. In a product-led organization, every single team plays a part. A product-led marketing team needs to ask, how can we use the product as the number one lead magnet? Your product-led sales team needs to ask, how can we use the product to qualify our prospects for us? That way, we have conversations with people that already understand our value. Whereas your product-led customer success team needs to ask, how can we create a product that helps customers become successful without our help? So the biggest difference here between sales-led and product-led organizations comes down to how we define success. In the sales-led company, success is often defined as closing a deal. We ring a bell in the office to signify success. We've closed a deal. Everyone's happy because we just hit that closed one quota. Whereas in a product-led company, success takes on a whole new meaning. Product-led companies live and die by user success. If someone signs up for your product and they can't get value out of it, they don't have a whole lot of good reasons to sign up for the paid plan. And that's basically game over. If your users can't figure out how to get value from your product, you won't be able to make the model work. But deliver value up front. Help your user become successful. And you won't just have a new customer. You'll also have an advocate, because your user's success will eventually become your success. This is the secret behind product-led growth. Your user success will become your success, because when you align your company's success with your user's success, something incredible happens. It sends signals to everyone on your team that this is an organization that believes its product isn't just something you sell. It's how you serve others. And it's always been that way. But I think with the sales-led model, it's easy to get carried away, to think that our goal is to take people from point A to point B of the sales cycle. And it's easy to lose sight of the user in that process. Whereas the benefit of being product-led is our whole focus has to be on how can we create successful users, because that's the only thing that's going to help us become a successful company at the end of the day. So with that in mind, I want you to think about, how do you manufacture user success? It's really the million-dollar question, and it's been one of those problems I've been trying to really solve for myself for years now. And I want to share my take on how you can manufacture user success, because it's also what separates the winners from the losers in each market. Yet what many don't know is that this whole process of building a successful product-led business, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's actually pretty straightforward when you understand the first principles of product-led growth. So how do you build a successful product-led business? I want you to think about the last time you signed up for a software product. What did you hope to achieve before signing up? Were you able to accomplish that easily within the product? If so, you probably had a good reason to come back a second time, because your perceived value of the product, what someone promised you on the copy, on their website, maybe it was an ad, it lines up with your experience value. You were able to experience that value relatively quickly, but in a short period of time, the product delivered on its promise, and because of that, you have a very good reason to come back a second time. But on the flip side, if the product didn't deliver on its promise, you probably didn't bother logging in again. And that's because, according to Intercom, 40 to 60% of first-time users sign up and never log in a second time. Now, I want you to verify this. Don't take Intercom's word for it. Look in your product analytics. See for yourself how many of those first-time users actually come back a second time. Now, I've seen this stat again and again for lots of sad clients when they start realizing, oh man, this is a bigger problem than they thought. So please do yourself a favor, or at least write down a note to check this and verify this for your product and see for yourself, because if anything, it's conservative for a lot of companies. And so why is that? Why do the majority of users who sign up for a product just not bother to come back a second time? Is it because our product isn't good enough? Is it because I don't know, they just were busy doing something else? It wasn't a priority for them. They weren't motivated enough. Although there's millions of reasons why someone might not come back to your product a second time. I'm not going to go through all of them since there's a ton. The main one really comes down to this: time to value. It's the main problem. Because most product experiences resemble something like this. We promise someone something on the left, the perceived value, and then in between the time of experiencing the value of the product, it takes a really long time. And that's often because a lot of companies don't quite think about the time it takes for someone to get value out of the product. We just assume, hey, the user can figure it out, they're smart. Well, they might be smart, but they don't quite know how to get value out of your product, because although it might be very apparent and easy for you to use since maybe you built it, it's hard for others. And this experience gets in the way of helping people understand how they can get value out of your product. And although it might not seem at times like it's a big deal, even the smallest things can prevent thousands of people from experiencing the value of your product. Now, if you don't believe me, I'll give you a quick example. Take Snappa.com. They have thousands of signups every single week. They're doing incredible on the acquisition front. They have an incredible homepage conversion rate to free trial sign up. And I was talking to the founder, Chris, and I asked Chris, hey, Chris, what percentage of people who sign up for your free trial actually go into the product? So Chris didn't know at that time. That was fine. He got back to me an hour later and said, oh my goodness, Wes, 27% of people don't come back into the product. It's like 27%, huh? That's quite a lot of people, don't you think? It's like, yeah, what are we gonna do about it? Why is this happening? And so I wanted him to try and figure this one out on his own, so I didn't tell him right away. But eventually, smart guy, he came up with, well, maybe it's this step. You see, he had to require everyone who signed up for the product to go through this one step. And it's so common for so many SaaS companies right now. You sign up for a product and then you're required to activate your email so you can verify you're a real human. Except it's a lot more taxing than one of those CAPTCHA clickbox things. And so whenever you go into that email, it may seem just like one step, but you often have to go to your email browser. Maybe that's Gmail. And then you have to find the email, and then you have to click the email, and sometimes you have to sign in again. And so by the time you get through this whole process and actually get into the product, you've added about 5 steps. And what often happens is people go into their inbox, myself, get distracted by some other important email, totally forget about this low priority thing of signing up and activating their email. So they're lost. You're not getting those people back. They don't care enough right now to go into your product. Maybe some will at the end of the day, but that 27% for Chris, they just didn't care enough to go through this one step. So I asked him, what are we going to do about this? What should we do about this? And he came up with the idea of, well, we could delay this step. And that's exactly what his team did 2 weeks later. They delayed this step so that second-time users would have to actually activate their email. But first-time users, they could just sign up and go straight into the product. And what happened after this was absolutely incredible. You see, when we looked at the MRR, or monthly recurring revenue dashboard for snappa.com, on November 10th, something very incredible started to happen. Chris noticed his monthly recurring revenue started popping up. And by the end of November, he had a 20% boost in monthly recurring revenue. That was absolutely fantastic. And one of the reasons why this happened is because we decreased the time to value and made it easier for people to experience the value of the product. You see, it all comes down to that same sentence. I'm going to repeat it again and again until it's ingrained in your brain. Your user's success will eventually become your success. Because Chris removed this one step from the first-time user's experience, he helped more users become successful. And as a result of that, they started pulling out their credit cards, slapping them down, and paying for snappa.com because they were successful. That's it. That is product-led growth. Why did more users upgrade? It's because we made more of them successful. We took them from point A of, I need to make a graphic, to point B of, I just made my first graphic, and it's incredible. And when that happens, whether it's with graphics or not, something else, when you solve your user's pain, they decide, I want to come back a second time. I want to become a paying customer. I'm going to decide on my own. I didn't need someone to tell me because you just showed me how powerful your product is and why I have a good reason to come back again. So to really wrap up here, I want you to think about this. The way we sell has changed. It's never going to be the same. It used to be enough to shake someone's hand and trust that their solution would solve our problem without much proof. Now, this might have worked back in the good old days of sales where a handshake could seal the deal. But today, a strong brand and social proof are no longer enough to build trust with the modern buyer. You need to let people try before they buy and show value before a paywall. Product-led growth is simply how you turn that approach into an executable business strategy. To sell to the modern buyer, I want you to decide right now, are you going to be product-led or will you be disrupted? History tells us that how you sell is just as important as what you sell. Just like Blockbuster couldn't compete with Netflix by selling the same digital content, you need to decide when, not if, you'll need to innovate on the way you sell. Thank you so much for watching this masterclass on product-led growth. If you'd like to dig deeper into all things product-led growth, there's two things I'd recommend starting off with. One is dig into my book on product-led growth. Two, join the product-led growth Slack community we put together. You can find both resources at productled.com. And thanks again. Let me know also if you have any other questions about product-led growth in either the comments below or reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'd love to hear your questions. Thank you. Bye.